Well, good morning. It's been quite a while since I've posted something, and today, as I was starting a fire, I thought it would be fun to just share some things about what I've learned about fire building that apply to barbecue, that apply to camping, and just give you a brief overview of some tips, secrets to having a great backyard fire. So you can see here that we have a fire pit. It's surrounded by a bunch of different options for wood. One of the most important components of fire, though, is air. That's one of the things that most people forget, is that a fire that can't breathe is a fire that's not going to survive. Secondly, your wood choice is really important. Now, for example, here we have some Bradford pear. It's a hardwood, it's very dense, and this was cut during the summer. So this was cut sometime in July. It's now November, so you've got August, September, October, where it's sat out and it's seasoned. One of the things that's important to know about wood is that there's a moisture content in the wood. The actual chemical process of creating flame is releasing there's a certain amount of energy that goes to releasing the moisture that's trapped in the wood. Once that moisture has been essentially boiled or steamed off, you have the opportunity to access the actual fuel for the combustion process. Wood that is not split or that holds the bark like this seasons very slowly. Split wood, so for example, this is cedar that I actually cut, so in essence it's split. I cut this last year in March. So it has sat out, it had a high moisture content. You could see it as I was cutting it, the saw blade was moist. But now that it's dry, makes excellent fuel. So I'm gonna add some cedar to this fire. The other thing that I really like about cedar is its aromatic qualities. It smells really nice, burns really hot, and makes a really enjoyable fire. You'll notice also that I've arranged the Bradford pear wood in a log cabin style. What that does is that allows me to have oxygen, room to move through the bottom of the fire and exit out the top of the fire. Same concept that you have behind a chimney or any other scenario with fire. We're going from bottom to top. The other thing that you can't see here is that I've got two bricks in the bottom of this fire pit. One of the biggest errors that I see people make on a regular basis is that they have their fire built directly on the ground. Now, if your fire is built directly upon the ground, I would suggest a teepee style fire, which allows, again, the wood to be arranged thusly all the way around, which allows oxygen to come in through the bottom, a much wider base, and escape through a more vertical base. One of the tips that I would also suggest is that I have leftover peanut oil. We're coming up on Thanksgiving right now, and every single year we fry a bird. We usually have a little bit of oil sitting on the stove where we deep fat fry chicken wings that we've done smoking. And this makes an incredible addition to any fire starter. What I like to do is use some form of kindling, whether that is small pieces of wood or whether it's pine straw or whether it's a piece of paper, and I like to just pour a little bit of peanut oil on top of that. Now you can do a little, you can do a lot. Long story short, that is a secret that really gets things going, because that's essentially fuel. So fats are fuel just like wood is. And that allows this to burn a little bit longer, reach a level where it's hot enough where you can get consistent combustion, and you can create a great fire. Now, what's going to happen as this burns down? As this burns down, what I'm hoping to do is group up the coals into a nice coal base. What that does is it continues to recirculate the air from the bottom to top, and that's also very similar to what you see whenever you have charcoal. Some of you may have used a chimney starter. Charcoal is a process of reducing wood in this format down to just a carbon format, and it's done without the presence of oxygen. So it's a non-oxygenated combustion process that creates a really hot burning substance. So when you use also like a chimney starter, so if you've ever cooked with charcoal, another one of my suggestions would be to use a chimney starter. What's a chimney starter? It's just a similar method as to what we're talking about here. It rearranges all of the fuel in a vertical format so that you can put your combustion process at the very bottom. And I like to take some rolled up paper. I really like the sacks that you get at the supermarket, or even the bags that your charcoal comes in, the older ones, that rip that up, cover that up with a little bit of peanut oil, light that with my torch, and allow that to burn up through the charcoal. And that typically goes in about 7 to 10 minutes. So I can get my charcoal ready to cook in 7 to 10 minutes. The other thing that you'll notice is over there we have our barrel cooker. And believe it or not, that is not just a sealed system. There are two different ports or holes, one on the low side of the fire and one on the high side of the fire, which allows oxygen to come in and then exit as well. Probably before I go, the last thing I want to leave you with is that the condition of your wood is really going to determine the quality of your fire. So when we talked about seasoning wood, split wood, for example, like this pine here, so split wood like this pine takes approximately, depending upon the moisture content and the state of the wood when it was actually cut, takes about 3 months to properly season. Now, talking about seasoning wood, a lot of people view rain as the enemy. It's not. It's more important to leave your wood with air spaces around, below, and above to dry out. If you want to see an illustration of how rain might affect the moisture content of your wood, get yourself a small block like this, soak it in water overnight. You can either put it underwater with something that's going to hold it down, or you can just let it float in the water. And then the next day, and I suggest a little bit thicker chunk than this, cut it in half, and I think you'll be blown away at the penetration of the moisture into the lumber. Really slow, it's not something that you need to worry about. What's more important is that this gets consistent airflow. The airflow takes away the moisture that's evaporating out of the wood, and that it gets access to consistent sun that gives it the opportunity to consistently dry out. You'd be amazed at the power of the sun. So if this gets a little rain on it, it's going to slick right off of it. You're not going to have anything to worry about. I would suggest stacking this in an alternating pattern. We've got a nice retaining wall here, so I've got it backed up against that retaining wall for aesthetic purposes and for practical purposes. The other thing too is that the smaller the splits that you come up with, the more quickly that's going to dry, because you have a greater amount of surface area that can be exposed to not only sun, but also air. The other thing too that I think makes a big difference is the humidity level of your air around you. When you have high humidity levels, it's really difficult to get good or consistent evaporation. In arid climates, this may season more quickly, okay? Dead trees, if you're cutting a tree that was dead for quite a while, that's probably gonna season even more quickly, but I would tell you that even though the tree is dead, there's still a certain amount of moisture and also sap that's going to be present within that tree. So hopefully this is information that maybe you didn't know. This will be a fun video for you. Fire's starting to break down now. I'm going to take these gloves, which I can't say enough about. These are available from LL Bean, and I'm going to rearrange my fire in a way that's going to allow that oxygen to work from the bottom to the top. And I'm going to go back to stacking that in a crisscross fashion as much as I can, and taking advantage of the coal bed that I've got established down below there. So thank you guys for watching. Looking forward to Thanksgiving. I hope you are too. happy holidays, and stay safe.